Hello, I'm Scott Clover, and you're listening to the Intuitive Energy Podcast. This podcast series is about intuition, healing, and creating new energetic patterns that benefit you in your daily life. In my private practice, I help people heal from a diverse range of issues, including self-acceptance, trauma release, managing anxiety, emboldening self-worth, and creative expression. In today's episode, we talk about personal power versus the collective, the effect our childhoods can have on our adult interactions, the power of allow statements, and how to balance your energies and choose to have a more regulated sense of self. Enjoy.
Hello, Carl Munson here with Scott Clover, Intuitive Energy Healer, with Season 2, Episode 4 of our podcasted conversations. And we've been in the elevator, if you've heard the last few podcasts, the last 3. It's a journey of the chakras, and Scott was making the elevator analogy. And I'm not sure if we can be in Macy's, Scott, where a ground floor, family and tribe, second floor, sex, fear and desire, third floor, third chakra. Where are we today?
Third chakra is generally in the abdomen, right below the rib cage, above the belly button. And that's power, personal power, choice, self-esteem, how we hold these, how we lose these, how these are given away, how these are taken away.
Okay, so there's a kind of refinement going on, isn't it? We've looked at the collective, I suppose. There's a sense of refinement and going more from the collective into the personal now. So we're refining and focusing ourselves in the world, are we, when it comes to this solar plexus area?
Yeah, exactly. It's coming into your own. We went from tribal into interpersonal, and this chakra is really about personal power. Yeah.
Yes. Am I right as well in thinking that if we were to characterize an age or a time in history for people, is this pivotal for us as human beings, this solar plexus area? Because it does get referred to a lot, well, in the circles I move in anyway. But are we in that sort of pivotal moment of figuring out our balance of personal versus corporate and collective?
Definitely. And we have been for a while. We have been since the 80s and 90s, when corporations just started to only think of corporate dollars and not the people that worked for them. When they sold off the retirement accounts, for example, that started a downward spiral of corporations getting permission not to protect anymore. So it really went to, how do we protect ourselves and our own families and our own households? That's when you see deregulation happening and the stock markets going a little more insane with how they're structured. And so that has been happening over the last 30 years.
Right.
And now we're really seeing it with how personally responsible are you for your health?
Okay.
And what decisions are being made elsewhere.
So really in that conversation of the third chakra now, and as is the case normally as I work out from our conversations and what you tell me here, is that there will be I was going to say a good and a bad side. That's probably not the best way of putting it, but a positive, a negative, or an upside and a downside to this area in how it can serve you and how you can get the best out of life by understanding it, right? So I think we've touched on a little bit of the dark side there, the movements in society. How can you make the third chakra work for your own unfolding and best benefit?
Sure. If you want to look at it archetypally, this one is ruled more by the guardian of choice, Carolyn Mace, who's sort of the crotchety godmother of energy medicine, who I highly recommend if you're interested in chakras. She goes into in depth about how all these work. She's amazing. Really, frankly, just a good session you can download from her at any point. If you think of the chakras as wheels or tunnels, as I do, blocking the back of the chakras, especially this third one, causing an imbalance of energy, you're going to see that imbalance work itself out in your personality, your interactions, what you deem worthy for you, and your choices that you make. So it really has a lot to do with your guardian of choice, or as Carolyn Mace would say, your saboteur.
Saboteur, okay. And then this is also in the conversation of the moment, isn't it? In how we might excel in our lives, and we have these self-saboteurs. So that's all working around this sort of area, is it?
Correct. And it has to do with how did it get formed and structured in your household, in your schooling, around your peers growing up. And then what did you decide when you came into adulthood? How much of that stuff did you keep with you? How much of that damage did you keep with you? And how much of it did you let go of and create your own sense of choice about how you interact with the world? And that happens, as I said, in late adolescence, early adulthood.
Okay. And what I love about your work, Scott, is that you bring a very practical touch to this, where it could be very kind of pink and fluffy and out there. And that's a stereotype sometimes, isn't it? With when people start using the word energy. The great thing about these podcasts and our conversations is you often come in with something very practical that people can see, feel, and deal with in their own lives. Now, this third chakra thing, it strikes me that people do feel this well in their bodies, don't they? Of all the chakras, the heart and the solar plexus are really areas where you can actually feel something going on. So what can we do to locate and work with this solar plexus third chakra energy practically in our lives?
Sure. Well, first of all, you hear it in our vernacular. You hear it in the words we choose and the colloquial expressions. Children not wanting to go to school because their tummy hurts. Well, maybe they know they're going to be teased. And so their third chakra is preparing itself or not, or saying, I can't deal with that today, so I'm going to get a tummy ache. And then I'm not going to go to school. We hear it all the time in expressions that we have.
Like gut feelings.
Gut feelings, it's a prime example. Or, it hit me right in the gut.
Yeah.
When something happens that takes your power away, the expression is we feel like we get punched in the gut.
Yeah.
And to some extent, it does feel like that's a tightening, like a fist in that area can tighten. So what people can do now is just close your eyes and bring your awareness to that area, not just the front that you might be originally drawn to, but bring it backwards, bring it back through the body into the spine. And what a lot of people notice is when you bring it backwards, that there's a tightness in the back or a congestion.
Yeah, got that.
Yeah. And that tightness congestion can reach up into the heart chakra or reach down below into the kidney area.
And that will affect things in your life, won't it? Because I can resonate with what you were saying, that the butterflies in the stomach, that idea before school, and in the daily run of our sort of normal society in the collective, you would be choking down those sort of feelings potentially, wouldn't you? Go to school, never mind about all of that. And when you learn how to mask over or stifle down these sorts of this sort of awareness and these feelings, and here we are, you've taken us there. So what can we do to honor that more and be aware and not choke it down?
Right. So first acknowledge that the back might have congestion to it, or that there's layers and layers upon layers of energy behind it that have just been stuck to it, like mud flaps behind a truck. And you can go to that area and try to clean off the back of the chakra, get some flow going. Once again, not just in the part your hand can touch when you put your hand to your belly, but behind you as well.
Wow. Because there are other questions I want to ask you, but are we going deeper into this area now?
You can ask me a question, sure.
Yeah, because I'm thinking judgment, self-judgment. These are issues in this realm as well?
Definitely. We've been talking about judgment and how it affects the other two chakras earlier. And this is definitely one of the chakras that bears the brunt of self-judgment and judgment from others.
Yes.
When girls tease girls or boys tease boys in our school and things like that, this is a prime way that someone who is trying to take someone's power away comes at this area. Yeah. So say the bully has a weak power center, and so the bully goes out and tries to glean someone else's power to help them feel more balanced.
Yeah.
And what that does is it causes a ripple on both sides. So the bully is damaging themselves just by the act, and then the atrocity of what's happening to the psyche or the energy field of the person being bullied.
Wow. And that could be remembered as this kind of stock in trade of school, couldn't it? And even in corporate life, those structures still exist, don't they?
Correct. Then those patterns can actually recreate themselves in your life, in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, things like that. But these are patterns that could have happened early in life. And then people around you are sort of sense how you're shaped. And then the pattern just keeps continuing.
Okay. I feel we need to do more then. What else can we give people from the point of view of strengthening from within and interrupting this pattern of judgment, self-judgment, the saboteur, the bully, and all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, use allow statements. I allow my body to. Give your body the choice to change.
Okay.
I've referenced before in some of these about the student that gets made fun of in third grade because he's dancing funny. And then he just stops dancing. So he doesn't allow himself to dance. He can dance. He chooses not to. So how do you choose to bring energy to here? How do you choose to restructure it? Part of that is shadow work and going backwards and saying, oh, these things affected me more dramatically over time than I gave credence to, or I've been trying to overcompensate in other areas of my life. And so this third chakra, emboldening this third chakra, especially cleaning out and emboldening the flow of the energy in the back of the body, is a really prime way to create stability, once again, above and below this area.
Yeah, and that's crucial, isn't it? Especially with this one, given that it's between, sort of metaphorically, energetically, between the heart and on our root, and how much damage or benefit it could bring to those areas.
Yes, and I see in my client work, it's almost one of the most ignored. It's one of the ones that people are drawn to work on the least. And that's sort of a sabotaging design.
Yes, of course. I was going to ask you, why is that? But of course, if you wanted to sabotage yourself, you would start with the sabotage center of your energetic being, wouldn't you?
Yeah, or start with the easier ones to align. This one's really rooted in self. And that's hard for a lot of people to go to and illuminate some of their shadowy corners and clean out some of the corners of their energy fields, as we're.
Yeah. And I love this idea of allowing, Scott. Please say more about this. You know, the authenticity, the acceptance, the allowing that we can bring to ourselves. You know, you don't have to stop dancing. You can allow yourself to dance. You can allow yourself to do anything, really, can't you, that you might have let go of or shut down earlier on?
Correct. These allow statements really can be very helpful in terms of regaining a sense of self-esteem. I allow my body to, and then choose something. I allow my body to shift its energy on the back of my third chakra, and then imagine that happening. You know, go ahead and review the 4 agreements. And if you're not aligning with one of those 4 agreements, then you probably need to do some work in this third chakra area. One of those 4 agreements is be authentic in your word. So the more that you can be authentic in your words and deeds, then this third chakra is going to have a real chance and an opportunity to restructure and rebuild itself.
The 4 agreements, fantastic. Link to those then in the podcast notes, I hope.
Sure.
Is this where our sort of self-critic lives as well? You know, that almost that caricature of ourselves, putting ourselves down. Is this where they dwell?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's where the self-critic dwells. It's where the microphone is given for other people's critic of you.
Oh, no.
There's a New York-based performance artist named Mike Albo. He's an author. He wrote The Junket, available on Amazon. But he also has a character called the Underminer in some of his live performances and some of his comedy acts. And it's the person you meet at the grocery store who will undermine everything you're doing by trying to empower themselves in the conversation. And it's really hard to watch sometimes to see how easily it's performed and how easily somebody with just a comment or a phrase or a look can undermine the person's energy that they're speaking to, and that the person is undermined by that look.
Yeah. But they can only do that, right, if you've got a sort of disposition for that to occur. And that's what we're talking about here, right, is regaining territory for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. If you're too open, if your third chakra is too open and receive all that criticism, then you have to metabolize that criticism.
Yeah.
If your third chakra is too open or too open in the back and letting in other people's garbage, then you have to deal with other people's garbage that's coming at you from behind.
Yikes.
I mean, we have that expression, I got stabbed in the back.
Yes, yeah.
Like stabbed in the heart is a different expression. Stabbed in the back is something else. And so it's somebody betrayed you. They tried to take your power away because they wanted to keep it for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's these power struggles that happen every day in our discussions, in our society, in work, in school. We're always trying to deal what is the power structure with the person you're relating to. And instead of trying to overcompensate or negotiate with theirs, just keep yours more consistent. And then they know who they're dealing with.
Well, of course, then especially useful in personal close relationships, right? Because if there's obviously, or there's usually a power struggle, as you've said there, to begin with, isn't there? And then ongoingly, if you're not presenting your own real self and you're not dealing with the other's real self, there might be problems, right?
Yeah, well, you kept saying struggle and problems, and I would say pointed out that it's just an energetic balance.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be the energetic power struggle. It can be a power balance.
Okay. Yeah,
And if
interesting.
you make the choice to be the more powerful or the more complacent one in a relationship, then that's a healthy choice you're making because
Ah,
it fits in with the person you're relating to.
okay. Yes. Okay. So then, like, what works works. It doesn't. It doesn't have to be sort of archetypically perfect. It just
Right.
needs to be a negotiated and authentic understanding.
Correct, because 50-50 is kind of a pipe dream, and 50-50 might be considered the perfection, but it's very hard to attain that. So if you and your partner decide that the power in the relationship is 60-40 and that decision's agreed upon, then that's an emboldening choice for both of you and you can move on. It
That's
doesn't have to be a struggle, it's just a choice.
that's really well, near shaken me actually, because this idea, you're right, 50-50 is could be a recipe for difficulty and overly challenging to a relationship, rather than a negotiated sort of outcome and getting the balance right for you personally.
For you personally, for the
Yeah.
choices you're making in the interpersonal relationship you're having or the group that you're interacting with.
Wow. Okay, and you see this, I suppose, don't you, with teenagers? This area we're talking about in this time of development for young adults, it might not be a negative or bad thing to be the quiet one, to be the less extroverted one. It's about balance rather than everyone being a star.
Correct. Still waters run deep. So let them. If,
Beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
fantastic. Now, I'm processing this, as you can hear. You can almost hear my hard drive at work here, because this is really powerful stuff. And something I want to ask you about with this as well is the school journey, the school career. I think people can relate to the energetic feeling you've spoken about, or in the belly, in the solar plexus, in the tummy before going to school, which then can be before going to work. And this is something that can go on for a very long time in life, right from being a little child, and then through the remnants of that into adult life. With energetic healing, Scott, if let's say we've been doing this and it could be 20 or 30 years, couldn't it? We could have had this sort of repressed energy challenge going on in the solar plexus. If an individual, for example, then has been feeling this way, 20, 30 years of nervousness, butterflies in the tummy before school, is it going to take me 20 or 30 years to put that right?
No, definitely not. Think of it as a hose that hasn't been utilized. And then you hook the hose up to an energy flow, and then you can get water to go through the hose. The hose can be 30 years dry, and it's still going to allow energy through it if you choose to.
Okay. Good.
So once again, we go back to this guardian of choice and saying, where am I dilapidated? Where was I depleted? And then you choose to accept that happened. You accept the existing realities that area has historically been depleted, and then you make a choice to replenish it, to bring more life force or chi to that area.
Amazing. That's good to know. That's good to know that it's not really about time. It's more about intention.
Correct. And as you were trying to point out, it's not about what's happening outside. It's not about the microcosm right now.
Yes.
It's about individuals doing this for themselves, and that eventually will create a gravitational pull in our society, that it will be more commonplace, more mainstream, more self-accepted and accepted of others, that you have boundaries and your strengths and your weaknesses can fit into a collective. Change is difficult in societies. If you look at American politics, the reasons why they're stalemated is because it's 50-50.
Oh, okay. But you're talking about in the collective.
The collective, well, in the microcosm is the individual, but it's pretty much the same thing. My mentor received an award by the National Institute of Health 20, 30 years ago for somatic work. For part of what I do now is helping people use these somatic technologies to release energy out of their bodies that's been collected. And he won this award from the NIH over 20 years ago. And a man pulled him aside and said, great work, but this isn't going to take on for another 20 some odd years. And he was shocked And now, lo and behold, he's already passed away. And the work that he'd been talking about for all these years is finally coming out into society as being useful. And not just useful, but extremely effective.
Marvelous. Okay, what you often do, Scott, and I'll be focusing on one part of the balance or imbalance of a chakra. What's on the other side then? So we have on the one hand, the more introverted type who's feeling this in their solar plexus. What do the people who overly exert their third chakra do? What does their behavior look like?
It could come across as like a bullying energy, an overprotection of, an overexertion of your power. A lot of us have had bosses that we've really enjoyed because we felt like we were part of a team. And then we have bosses who are kind of awful because there's like this power trip going on that does not need to be, or it's completely unnecessary. If you embolden the person to do the job they're supposed to do, wielding power over them to do it is not satisfactory to the receiver. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing I think is changing is some of these work power struggles or work issues, we should say, with the Zoom meetings and things like that. You're not having the interpersonal issues with the people at the water cooler the way you used to. And so I think that's causing some animosity for people because some people liked the fight of it. Some people were so accustomed to the interactions and the drama of that. And that's being reduced greatly just because of our lack of interactions in the work environment. So I think there's a lot of people who are trying to figure out their power because they're not around enough people where they used to wield it.
Interesting. And is there also something about performance in this? Because singers, for example, sing from, as I understand it, sing from this place, yeah, or voice projection might come from this.
The diaphragm area, yeah, and the muscles around the rib cage. Exactly. How are you putting your subtleties out in the world? So singing has a lot to do with closing down some of the air passages so the air can flow equally. Singing isn't just breathing really heavy. Singing is regulating the energy coming out and the power and how it's being released. And so that's why I think partly why we're drawn to an Adele or one of these singers that has such a beautiful command of that. And I think subconsciously we become a little envious of that.
Too right. Okay. And for those people who see themselves as the bully, because that's sometimes what we talk about here, the self-recognition of, oh my God, that's me. Same treatment, same approach again of rebalancing, but from a slightly different angle.
Yeah, and if you are self-realizing and saying I was a bully or I'm currently bullying and it's actually harming me, then you'd want to go back and look at the first and second chakras as well to see where the depletion was that the power center is now trying to overcompensate for.
Yes, yeah.
And generally, you're going to find that in your adolescent years growing up or some past life issue or something that's just been vexing you or felt like a void. And you want to fill that void. Well, if it's a void and you try to keep filling it and nothing happens, that causes an overexertion of the power struggle or the power. No, let me straighten that over again. If there's a void in that area, trying to fill that void and it doesn't fill, that creates a whole nother power vacuum.
Amazing. And I have to say, I love this about your approach and your work, as I understand it, Scott, is that typically, characteristically, stereotypically, the personal growth movement seems to be focused on people who are kind of in some way smaller but want to be bigger and achieve their fuller potential. You have, as far as I can see, open arms for the other ones as well, who say, yes, I have been a bully or I have been an a-hole or whatever. You love them one and all, don't you? Because it's about balance and energy to you, not about judgments of character.
I am more than happy to balance out somebody who's top heavy as I am to balance out somebody who's bottom heavy. Yeah. If the desire is there in work like mine, because it's somewhat ineffable, it's hard to describe. And it's so personalized if we're doing sessions one-on-one. It really is nice to have people that show up.
Yes.
That don't say, oh, I just want healing done to me, but I want to participate and collaborate in my own healing.
Yeah.
And if that person is intuitive, then it works out even easier or simpler for them, less work, because they're able to tune into what we are tuning into, and it makes it real in real time. And that's where healing and catharsis can happen.
And I can imagine that could be extremely powerful for someone who's willing to acknowledge that they've been an idiot or been in some way inappropriate and unpleasant, and they want to do something about it. What a wonderful energy to be working with in the first place.
Definitely. And as I said, it's called accepting existing realities.
Yeah.
If you accept the existing reality, then you're not fighting up against it, and then change can actually happen.
Amazing. Okay, we put this into the context of the times, this third chakra thing. Did it all begin in the 80s? I mean, from what you've said, it does seem to be the realm of big shoulder pads and big money and selfishness and Gordon Gekko and all those sorts of things.
Yeah. And there was a book by Bret Easton Ellis, American Psycho. They made it into a movie. That was the epitome of that. And some of the music patronized it. The Tears for Fears kind of patronized it with Everybody Wants to Rule the World.
Oh, yeah.
That's not true. Not everyone wants to be famous. I live in Manhattan, and we talk often at dinner parties and stuff how awkward it would be to be someone of notoriety, because then you're always being watched and looked at. Yeah. Then people are trying to take your power away just because they see you as having more of it.
Yes. So again, it's about balance, isn't it?
It's about balance and making your own grass green.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so obviously you're available, as you said, to help people, but you're very generous as well in the exercises and the awareness you give to people. I mean, the conversations that we have in the podcast here. What else have we got for people in terms of doing work around the third chakra?
The allow statements, categorize them as energy is moving in and around my body or not. So energy is vibration, and the cells are vibrating, whether they're vibrating stagnant in place or they're moving, or the chi, the energy, the life force. Cluing into those allow statements, choosing to dance, choosing to overcome one of these minor things that you feel takes your power away. Don't try to take them all away at once. Find one and chip away at it.
And be there in that part of your body while you're doing this.
Be present in that part of your body, accept that there is an issue, and choose to want to change it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. I think that ought to do it for now. And onwards, we're in season 2. This has been episode 4. Episode 5 goes to the heart of things, literally, next time. So stay tuned for that. Have we got a foretaste of the heart chakra?
Yeah, it's about how you put yourself out in the world and how you experience love, compassion, altruism. What are you dedicated to?
Oh, wonderful. Don't miss that, folks. Great to talk to you, Scott. See you next time.
Thanks, Carl. You've been listening to the Intuitive Energy Podcast with me, Scott Clover. Thanks to Carl Munson for the great discussion and to Corey Tutt for the music you're listening to. In my private practice, I encourage people to heal what holds you back and feel better in your body. If you need more help with that process, I'm available for healing sessions by phone internationally. Visit scottclover.com for more information. Be well, and thanks for listening. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and solely as a self-help tool for your own use. I'm not providing medical, psychological, or nutrition therapy advice. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat any health problems or illnesses without consulting your own medical practitioner. Always seek the advice of your own medical practitioner and/or mental health provider about your specific health situation. For my full disclaimer, please go to scottclover.com/disclaimer.